You start to kind of, like I said, peel back the layers and invite God in to deal with that. It was just a lot of allowing God to work on my heart, like put things in proper perspective and ultimately bring me to a place where I wanted to let go. And so, like I said, my complete deliverance and healing from it didn't come until I was like, okay, God, I want to be done. I separate myself from it. I, want to be free from it. And he's like, okay, there we go. That was when the shift happened. Like literally, I remember a conversation in my car with the Lord. I was just like, God, I want to be free. Like, help me, deliver me from this. And he's like, okay, now we're where I need you to be for me to do my work. And literally from that day, there was a big shift in just that connection.
Do you think anything is possible inside of Sin City, Las Vegas? I believe what God is doing is that he's bringing people together under the spirit of unity to display that anything and everything is possible through him. This is Las Vegas United. Well, hello, and I know it has been a while, but guess what? I'm back in the building. I'm your host here at Las Vegas United. My name is Dr. Presley, and it's a pleasure to be with you. If you're watching from YouTube, if you're watching from Keen 17, if you're watching from our CTN app, we welcome all of you just the same. If you are watching from YouTube, do me a huge favor. Hit that bell button, bing, so that way you get notified whenever we go live, because we want to make sure that you know what's going on inside of your city, because that's the part. What sense does it make to even live in a place and you don't know what God is doing? And speaking of what God is doing, can you help me just go ahead and welcome a special guest of mine today? She is now an author. Can we say it? She is now an author. Can you help me welcome Cyndrea Mathews? What's going on? How are we doing today?
Hello. I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. So thank you for coming on today as well.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely. So before we go any further now, the thing is, I know who you are, right? Me and my wife, we know who you are because you're at our church, and man, you amazing voice. But even much more the gifts that God has placed inside of you. We'll get to that part, but however, who is Cyndrea? Where does Cyndrea come from? And just let us know who you are.
All right. Well, I am a wife and a working mompreneur. So that means I have 3 children, 2 bonus babies, a job, and a business, and now a book. So
come on now.
So yes,
come on. Yes,
that's who I am.
Being say it one more time. It was
working mompreneur.
Working mompreneur. Give us a little bit more detail in regards to like what that looks like, because there might be somebody out there that's watching us like, you know what, I can feel her on that. I'm working, I'm looking to start a business, and I have children, like, and I got bonus babies as well. Like what does that look like?
It's a lot. I mean, it's a full day of juggling it all, but trying to do it with balance, if that's possible. So yeah, I wake up and I have my kids to get ready. I got a job to tend to. I got a business to manage, and books to now promote. Come on. So yeah, that's kind of what it looks like, just managing family, managing a job and business.
Right. So business. Business. What business do you have here?
So right now I have a beauty supply and salon in Los Angeles called For the Culture Beauty Supply.
Okay.
And so yeah, that's what I've had the business for 7 years now. Okay. Or going on 7 years. And so I manage remotely largely, but I'm back and forth to LA a lot doing that, and so that's a big piece of. So
for your business that's in LA, what services do you offer out there? Because some people are like, hey, I travel back and forth, and I want to be able to support a Christian business, even maybe outside of the limits of Las Vegas. Like, what does your business offer?
Yeah, we're a beauty supply store that specializes in natural hair products, protective styling solutions, and we feature a full salon and a DIY hair oil and butter bar. So you can come in there, find your natural hair products. You can have your hair serviced. You can even get your nails done, and you can make your own hair oil or butter to take home. So that's kind of like a one-stop shop in a lot of ways. And so those are the services we offer. We do have a website, which is fortheculturebeauty.com, and you can order your products there too. So
come on, that's so good right there. Yeah, that's a lot going on.
It is.
That is a lot going on. Yeah. You have, you're a mother, you're a wife, right? You have a business. And before we get into the book, I wanna kind of start getting to that part as far as how did the book come along? Because it's one thing, many times people just say, like, I sat down and I just wrote a book, but a lot of times when someone writes a book, there's a backstory behind it that's really ends up being a driving factor. Even much more is what God utilizes to bring something out of that person, so that way it begins to help other individuals that might be going through the same thing. So how did your book, what's the backstory leading up to the actual, let's go ahead and start printing this on paper?
Yeah. So actually, it's a collection of poetry that I wrote years ago, or over the course of years, but when I was younger. And so I wasn't writing these poems to write a book. I was writing these poems to express my feelings, to process what I was going through, and to understand it all, or just get it out, because poetry is my release. And so it wasn't until just a few years ago that I was inspired to actually compile them into a book. Okay. Up until then, they were just in my notebooks, packed away. And I think I was reading another poetry book. It's called Black Girl Call Home by Jasmine Mans. And I was like, wow, I can do this. I have poetry. And so I literally dug out all my notebooks, and I actually had some, already typed up. And so I just started to compile them. And I realized I had a book. I just kind of compiled them and started to read through them again, because these were all things that, again, were from my past. And I realized that the poems actually told a story. And so that wasn't my intention when I was writing it, but that's what it is, and I think that's, ordained by God. I think he was walking with me through what I was going through and giving me the words to express it, because that's the way he designed me. And so, I compiled them into a book, and actually I compiled this in 2021.
Oh, wow.
And
so you've been sitting on this for a little bit.
Yeah. And for whatever reason, I compiled them into a book, and then I got the cover designed, and then for one reason or another, I got, pulled in another direction, a lot going on with the business. And then every couple years, I think maybe 2023, I remembered, I still haven't put this book out. And then I, reached out to my editor or my designer, graphic designer, and she had to do the back cover. So it was a gradual process. And so it wasn't until this year that I was like, okay, I got to get this out and just put it out. But I also feel like it was time, because every time that I went back to it, God added a new element to it, or gave me more clarity about, what was really happening throughout this story. And so I was able to frame it and even continue to heal from that part of my life. So
See, I like the last part you just said. You're like, hey, saying, the Lord, he came in and began to show me different things, even much more. There was additional healing that occurred even in the process of taking something old and now presenting it out to the public, if you would. So here's a question for you. Now it's one of those deals where we're talking about things that you've gone through, emotions that you probably felt, those things. Looking back, right, and looking at it, I have a question, and maybe you can elaborate upon it and maybe help somebody in this as well. Was it good to look back and see where you were, and then evaluate your mindset of then, and then look at yourself now and say, you know what, I wouldn't handle it the same way I handled it before. Did the Lord give you any type of clarity when it came down to that? Because we're talking about healing.
For
you know what I'm saying? We're talking about that. That there's, I'm pretty sure there's something inside of that book that inside of your book that's going to help somebody. What is something that if someone was to read it, what could they expect with looking at the past?
One of the biggest revelations I got when reading back through the poems and compiling it and forming it into this book is that what I was dealing with was a soul tie. So at the time that I'm processing everything, it just feels like I'm processing a breakup or a heartbreak or a loss, and I don't understand why I'm still dealing with it, even years down the line, even with no contact with this person. I'm still feeling connected. Even long after the desire for the relationship ended, there was still this lingering, nagging connection that I'm like, I don't want this person. Like, why do I still feel connected to them? And so, looking back, I don't know that there's anything I would have handled differently. I think I handled it the best way I knew how, and I'm glad that I had my notebook to confide in, to be honest. And I think that I definitely grew closer to God throughout the process, throughout the healing journey. You'll even see that in the book. Like, the way I speak about things in the beginning begins to shift, once I kind of let go or start to let go of that situation and like cling to my faith. And so the way I'm expressing my feelings, the things that I'm talking about start to shift as God shifted my heart. And even after the final poem of this book, there was still healing that needed to take place in the next phase of my life. And I would say it was long after the final poem that I actually received complete deliverance from it.
So here's the part, right? Because you said something, and I think people, we don't take this stuff seriously when it comes down to our souls. And you use two words, soul tie. And I believe it's one of those deals where when we decide to give ourselves up to someone else that we're not married to, and in whatever capacity it is, we fail to realize that our souls and our spirits begin to tangle, and they become intertwined together. And as they become intertwined together, now they become one, if you would, right? And sometimes what happens is we end up attaching ourselves to someone that the Lord never wanted us to be attached to. So now with this in mind, because you said it, right? When it comes down to soul tie, what is something that someone that may be experiencing right now? And they're like, you know what? I've been trying to break away from this person for 2, 3, 6, 7 years now, and I cannot seem to get over them, even though getting over them is not the correct term, but that's the terminology we use. What is something that you can give to someone that might be stuck in a place like that?
What it comes down to is putting things in the proper perspective, because I think sometimes when we deal with soul ties, or at least in my situation, it feels like and it is a spiritual connection.
Absolutely.
But if you don't have the right language, if you don't have the right perspective, you can attribute it to the wrong spirit. You can think, oh, it must be God. It must be the Lord leading me to this person, or allowing this connection to remain. And what God revealed to me later was like, yeah, no, that wasn't of me. That is a different spirit that is keeping you guys connected. And actually, when God started to give me that perspective of like, hey, this was never me, then I'm like, oh, this was the enemy that just set me up from the jump to skew my view of love, to impact my experience with love. And then I got mad because I'm like, you stole that from me. You stole that experience from me. And so then I kind of put it in the proper perspective. I realized I put this relationship, this person on a pedestal, and you take them off. And you put them in proper context, and then you can look at things from a more level playing field. You're like, this was never a good experience. So why am I still feeling connected to it? You start to kind of, like I said, peel back the layers and invite God in to deal with that. And you also have to get to a place where you want to be done with it. You want to be separated from it, because for a long time it was the comfort zone. The chaos was comfort. The confusion was comfort. And so, again, like, that's the crazy part about this book. There was no rekindling, but you would think so, because of the way my mind and my heart was still connected to it, and so it was just a lot of allowing God to work on my heart, like, put things in proper perspective, and ultimately bring me to a place where I wanted to let go. And so, like I said, my complete deliverance and healing from it didn't come until I was like, okay, God, I want to be done. I separate myself from it. I, want to be free from it. And he's like, okay, there we go. That was when the shift happened. Like, literally, I remember a conversation in my car with the Lord. I was just like, God, I want to be free. Like, help me, deliver me. Deliver me from this. And he's like, okay, now we're where I need you to be for me to do my work. And literally from that day, there was a big shift in just that connection. And so.
No, and you think, I believe you're really onto it, right? In regards to we have to want it to be gone, right? A lot of times, like you said, we find ourselves, we have comfort in the chaos. You know what I'm saying? We like to call it organized chaos. It's like the only thing we're organizing is the fact that we want to stay up in it. Right. So we begin to shift things around to stay in this one place that's comfortable, you know. And it's interesting because we will find comfort in pain, you know.
That's all we know.
Yeah, if that's all we know. But you think it's one of those deals that even though it's all we may know, what's so loving about the Father is he's like, although that may be all you know, I know so much more. There's a greater place I want you to be at. And you think it's even much more. And I think there's a part, and maybe you can agree with me or disagree with me on this right here, in that when we have soul ties, we lack the ability to fully love the people that we may be engaging with right now. Because a part of us is still there, you know, and it's one of those deals. I totally agree with the soul tie, right? Because I mean, you think, I was like, you know, even with my marriage with my wife, I was like, Lord, there's some things in my past that I need to break away from, you know, because I'm not fully loving my wife the way that I know I can. But it's difficult to bring myself to that place because I still have some lingering baggage. I still have some chains and some ropes that's still holding me in this place. I'm still anchored over here, and I need to be anchored over there.
Yeah, so I definitely agree. And what's crazy is for a long time, I didn't know that I could be free from it. And it was so subtle. Like, this wasn't something that I was like actively engaging with, like, if that makes sense. It was just something I was feeling, right? And so, yes, it did. Now looking back, I can see how it did impact my relationship, like early on with my husband. And I'm thinking, oh, it doesn't, because there's nothing going on, you know, like, but I didn't know he could feel it, you know, like, and he couldn't put words to it because it was nothing, like, tangible, right?
Yeah.
But I didn't know.
He's like, there's this disconnect. I can't explain it, but I don't have all of you. For some reason, I know I don't.
And I just felt like, one, nothing's going on, and two, I felt like there was nothing I could do about it. It just felt like something I had to live with for the rest of my life. That's how I felt. You know, I was just like, oh, well, maybe this is just how it is. Maybe this is just what I have to grapple with for the rest of my life, or like deal with. And so that's why
it's my thorn.
Yeah, I guess, you know, that's how it felt, like just something that, and I would like kind of look around and like see my friends who had also like separated from their, you know, high school relationships or whatever, and like, they seem fine. But I probably seemed fine to them too, because it wasn't something I was talking about. It wasn't something that I was really expressing openly. It wasn't something that people could see, I don't think. It was just something that I was feeling, processing, and writing about. And so I would also wonder, like, one, is this something I just have to deal with? And also, is this just me? Is there something wrong with me? Are other people feeling this? Is the other person feeling this? Like, that's a lot of the questions in the book. Like, am I just feeling this on my own? Because I wasn't talking to this person, so I didn't know if they were feeling this too, the connection or whatever. Later, you know, we did have a conversation, and I found out he did too, to a certain extent. So that's how I was like, okay, this is spiritual. Like, and we both felt it, but it was very weird. So yeah, that's why I feel like it's important to have the language for it, because then you know that you could be free from it, and that's not something you have to deal with for the rest of your life.
Come on.
And so that's why I felt like putting this book out was important, to give that language to someone who might be dealing with it, these feelings, and not know that it's a soul tie, and not know that there's deliverance for it, and there's freedom, and that there is healing, and then there is life on the other side, where you don't have to have these feelings. You can be free. You can fully immerse yourself in your new situations. And going back to like not even being able to fully engage with the people who are currently in your life, like even friends, you know, and family back then, while I'm processing these things. A lot of times I was a shell of myself, because I'm trapped in my head, trapped in my heart of my own, dealing with my own feelings. I was like in my own inner storm, and that kind of impacts your ability to live fully in the moment. You know, always like living in the past, because you're still processing what happened in the past and all these things.
Exactly.
And so it not only affects your romantic relationships, but friendships and family, just being able to be present. So.
Yeah, no, I love it. And we've been talking about the book, but we never said what the title was called.
Yes.
What is the title of your book?
It's called Spilled Milk. And it's titled after the title poem, which is the final poem in the book, which is called Spilled Milk. And really, it is inspired by the quote, "There's no point in crying over spilled milk because what's done is done." And so I got to the point where I was no longer crying over the past. I was kind of like, I came to a place of acceptance. Like, okay, this is what happened. I'm not going to keep reliving it. I'm just going to focus on the future.
Yeah. No, and it was interesting because as I was looking at the book and everything, it was something that as I was looking at, I felt something. And in that, if you were to look at some of your poems, and it was I had like this idea and this unction of the Song of Solomon, right? That particular portion of the gospel, but even much more. But even then, how he's really speaking to, although it's between and a woman and a man, even though it's between two people, it really displays our relationship with God. And it was interesting because as I was looking at the poem, at your various poems, I got a sense of that sometimes we can find ourselves tied to something else, and he's the one crying out. You know what I'm saying? He's like, why? Like, what did I do? What did I do? It's like what? I love you so much. I'm head over heels for you, and yet I yearn for you. I hurt for you, right? Although I know we're talking about something different, as far as soul ties. But the thing is, when I was looking at it, I was like, well, yeah, God, you hate when we tie ourselves to other things because you desire our soul, you desire our spirit because you desire to be with us. You know what I'm saying? What do you think about? Because you're the author of it, and I really, for me, I was just like, man, God, I can really feel your heart in this crying out, and we're tied to something else.
Yeah. I think that's real. That's definitely real. I hadn't necessarily looked at it from that perspective with this book, but I will say I've seen that expressed and just demonstrated even in my marriage. So like early on, if there was, and God uses my marriage a lot to speak to me and get my attention. And so early on, like if there was ever a time I felt like, oh, I want more attention, or I want to just talk more, I want to do this and that, he'd be like, yeah, I know the feeling, like, and I'll be like, okay, God, I hear you. It was always like, I don't know, I feel like if there was any way that, maybe my husband was preoccupied or working or whatever, what have you, and we weren't able to spend time together, and I got to the point where it was bothering me, God will always like connect it. Like, have you been spending time with me? Like, have you been speaking to me?
Right.
Like, not, how I feel. And so it would draw me back to him. I would be like, okay, I hear you, because I know how it feels, because I'm feeling it in my natural relationship. And you're like showing me how you feel. You may be in a time where I wasn't pressing in as much. So,
No, it's interesting, right? Because God will utilize our marriages to grow us up, right? He'll use our marriages to basically, our marriages, I don't know, I mean, I can speak for myself and my wife. I know she can contest this right here. Babe, I love you so much, my beautiful wife, Annabelle. I know it's one of those deals that our marriages grow us up and they highlight our deficiencies. Like where we think we've been doing so well in, our marriages will show us you're not doing as good as you thought you were doing. And even much more, like you said, it's one of those deals where our marriages really depict how our relationship with God, how we treat our first person, the first one in our lives that we're supposed to be one with, right? That we leave our mother and our father and we cleave to them, right? We in this cleaving, it's like, well, we're not cleaving. He's like, the father's like, well, are you cleaving to me more so than anything else? So I love that. I love how you see it. You're like, hey, you know what? My marriage is what, God really just like, he's like, yep, boom, Cyndrea, my daughter, I'm talking to you through your marriage.
Yeah, for sure.
So no, I love this right here. So in our last few moments, I have a question. If there's inside of your book, what is something that maybe like maybe a portion that's up in there? It's like, you know what? This part right here resonated so much with me, and that you wanted to really touch somebody else's heart, what portion of your book would you say, hey, hey, all of it is good, right? I'm like halfway through it, so I'm still making my way through, but it's like, hey, if you were to steer somebody to one spot, it's like, hey, I want you to kind of look at this. What would you point them?
I guess towards the second half, like towards the end, that's where you really see me begin to cling to my faith and really like zero in on the love of the Father. And there is where I start to like come out of the ashes a little bit, like, and start to see things for what they are and realize that I don't need, that connection, that I need only my connection to God. Come on. And that, and to focus on the purpose He has for my life, And so, if you don't mind, I can read.
Yeah, real quick. Yeah, absolutely.
I think one that comes to mind is called My Testimony. It says, I've lived in love, inhaled promises of the future, and exhaled soul-altering hope, chewed on our reality and swallowed my pride one too many times, and before I choked on rejection, I survived on the very existence of Him. He was my sustenance, and consequently, I died in love, tossed and turned while I was 6 feet under, as my past was shoveled atop my being. I guess you could say I hit rock bottom. But then I was revived in love, as I clung to the faith that first had faith in me. I may not have been where you are, but I've been there. And so I wrote this poem at a time, I think this kind of goes back to like connecting with family and friends. I think a friend or somebody was talking to me about something that they've been through and that it was so catastrophic for them. And it was, oh my God, woe is me? Why am I dealing with this? Oh, maybe you don't understand. And I was deep in my stuff at that moment. And I'm like, I may not have been where you are, but I'm coming out of being buried under this weight of, what I was going through. But it also talks about how, I clung to the faith that first had faith in me, how it was God who brought me out of it. Right. And so, it was like my testimony all wrapped in one. So I think that was a really resonant one for me.
That's so good. Yeah. Come on. So now, in our last couple moments, if someone wanted to go ahead and support you in this right here and purchase a book, where would they go in order to purchase your book?
So right now they're available on my website, which is www.cyndrea.com. That's CYNDREA.com. And it will be available on Amazon soon, working on that and working on an audio book and hopefully some other things. So there's merch on my site as well. So you can get like key quotes from the book, from different poems on shirts, hats, mugs, and things like that. So,
that's so good. So, Come on. You're doing the whole thing, the whole gamut. Come on.
You got to do it if you're going to do it.
No, absolutely. So proud of what you're doing there, Cyndrea. It's a joy to watch you and your family just thrive in this moment as well. So, also, too, we thank you for tuning in as well. My prayer is that you find yourself, maybe you find yourself in a place where maybe you're in a soul tie and you're like, you know what, this really resonated with me. Then that means that this interview, this message was directly for you. And our prayer is that you find deliverance from the very hurt, pain, and the tie that you find yourself in. And how do you do that? Well, you go to God. You allow, as it was said, you allow your faith to be captured by the one that has faith in you, and that's God. So, right? And faith is a gift. So hold on to that gift because it's freely given to you. Other than that, we will catch you guys next time on Las Vegas United. We'll catch you soon.
Our show is hosted by Pastor Dada Presley from Connection Church LV. To learn more about him and his ministry, please visit myconnectionlv.org. The guest this week is Cyndrea Mathews, author of Spilled Milk. To learn more about Cyndrea and to purchase her book, please visit cyndrea.com. Thanks for watching our broadcast. Las Vegas United is produced by CTNVegas. For more information about CTNVegas and our show, please visit ctnvegas.com.